unless you're consistent. No way. No matter what the press says, or anyone says. You've got champion potential, but the true champion's on the job, you know, 9 times out of 10.
While Richmond, Carlton and Hawthorn were the driving forces of the 70s, the biggest recruiting coup of all was pulled off by the league's lowliest club. North Melbourne, moving swiftly on a rule which turned 10-year players into free agents, snared some of the league's greatest names in a bid to win their first premiership.
And, you know, the much talked about 10-year rule, which North Melbourne benefited from, North Melbourne voted against that. But as soon as they could see they weren't going to, their view wasn't going to prevail, within, I think, 48 hours, they'd interviewed the 22 of them. Now, that is class.
The rule survived just a few months of 1973, just long enough for North to entice Essendon's Barry Davis, South's John Rantel, and Geelong's Burley Doug Wade. They were finally won over with $10,000 each, cash.
A brown paper parcel tied very tightly with string, and when it opened, it sort of flashed across the table. Red notes, they were money.
And in the wad was $10,000, which I didn't know at the time, but it was the biggest amount of money I'd ever seen in my life. And he's thrown it across the room, and it's hit the sofa, bounced, fell on the floor, and my young son, Brad, is running, picked this wad of $10,000 up and drop-kicked it across the room.
Led by former captain Alan Aylett, manager Ron Joseph, and marketing whiz Barry Cheatley, the only club without a flag came out fighting, luring Ron Barassi to his 3rd league club.
Oh, boys. Well, I know for a fact that, you know, several of the committee, I wouldn't know whether it was just 2 or 3 or 7 or 8, I would tend to think it was the latter, put the houses on the line.
And I think we may become a bit like modern society, a bit bloody soft and spoiled. Get a little bit of dirt on your hands. Come on, come on. Come on, move around. Come on, come on.
I'll say one thing to you young blokes. You may be green, but as long as you're not yellow, that's what I'm interested in.
Come on, Mel, come on, Mel.
North Melbourne was transformed into a force as irrepressible as Kekovich and as skillful as Cable. But the dynamics between coach and players were volatile.
Gets into the half-court.
Weak as water, Ross.
Speed taken there. The goal scored.
Oh, Jesus, Ross.
It was a good strong ball. Was that bloody hit? Matthews goes back.
Bloody finessing. You tell Floyd, serve him bloody right. Does he think he can play on in the grand final when the game is tight? Tell him to wake up.
You know, that sort of pressure on anybody, the world's changed these days. I mean, we try and reason through that now. But, I mean, that was the way it was then, and that was the way press was, and, yeah, it did occasionally, it got you down. And in the end, one of the problems he ended up doing was playing despite him.
The end result must be a player who's very, very tough with himself, in resisting temptations, in staying focused, and he's meeting tough people. I mean, you're talking about the end result is the grand final, and out there like it's murder day on that particular day.
He was harder on the skillful, good players than anybody else. And Keith Gregg and Malcolm Blight and Sam Kekovich and those were
That's bloody right. Darryl, you are a I'll tell you why.
He didn't have a thick skin, you were in a bit of strife. If you were a very sensitive person, he used to get the inner man and rip your guts around a bit every now and then.
Keith, you've done the typical bloody thing. The ball's gone over. You could have run and intercepted that first goal, or second goal, what it was, and you probably don't even know what I'm talking about, do you?
He didn't waste a lot of time on blokes who couldn't play, but he certainly put tremendous demands on people he thought had ability, and he'd shake, rattle and roll that any way he could to get it out.
I enjoyed Brass. I think he's the most honest bloke I've ever met in my life. And Brass will never tell you a lie.
Chance here for Burns. He's going to be tackled by Wells. A long hand pass to Arnold Griders. Griders steadies. He shoots at the big ones. And it's another one.
In the 74 grand final, North lost by 41 points to Richmond. But in 75, they were psyched to avenge.
Oh, they're streaking away.
The crowd was enormous. I mean, I've played in quite a few grand finals, but I don't think I can remember hearing so much support to one side in a grand final as there was in that last quarter.
Just going back to North Melbourne and seeing those older people, I mean, it was as though their whole life had been fulfilled.
It was everything that I dreamed of. And let's face it, I never ever thought that I'd ever get there.
They did football a huge turn. They brought it into the 20th, perhaps the 19th century or 20th century by their professionalism.
A few years of dominance for North Melbourne eclipsed a lifetime of losing. But the mid-70s also had a lasting impact on Hawthorn through the courage of a rover they